In the ABCs of fall protection, A stands for anchor. The anchor is a key component of any fall protection system, not to be confused with an Anchorage connector, which is a term used for lanyards, lifelines, and other connecting devices that attach the anchor to your harness to secure a personal fall protection system. Let me show you what that looks like. So here we have a lanyard. We will take this lanyard and connect it on one end to the dorsal D-ring on our body harness, and over here to the top of this post anchor. Now this might not represent a super common connection where you would have a 6-foot lanyard going into a post anchor, but the idea here is just to demonstrate the three main components, which is this anchor, this connector, which is a shock absorbing lanyard, going to this, which is the body harness. So here we have the A, the B, and the C. The anchor itself is the component that actually attaches to the structure. The structure you attach the anchor to is called the anchorage. Combining the anchorage with your anchor creates your anchor point. So put simply, anchorage plus anchor equals anchor point. For the purposes of this video and talking about products, we're going to refer to these simply as anchors. Anchors can be permanent or temporary. Examples include D-ring plates, post anchors, beam anchors, cross-arm straps, etc. A connector is the component between the worker and the anchor, which we demonstrated earlier. Typically, this is a shock-absorbing lanyard or a self-retracting device. It serves as the primary connection between the dorsal D-ring, located on the worker's harness, and the anchor point. If you missed our introduction to the ABCs of fall protection, where we introduced the three key components needed, be sure to check it out. We've linked it somewhere on the screen here for you. In this video, we're going to dive into anchors a little more technically, so let's get started. The anchorage used in a fall protection system must withstand the potential fall arrest forces generated by a worker during a fall event and without becoming damaged or dislodged. Attaching to an anchorage of inadequate strength can not only be hazardous to the worker in the system, but may affect the integrity of the anchorage structure, endangering others as well. The anchorage shall provide a secure attachment point to the anchorage connector to prevent the worker from hitting the ground or an obstruction below the worker. This is known as the required fall clearance distance, something that people often overlook. OSHA regulations make it the responsibility of the end user to ensure their fall arrest system is designed in such a way as to provide sufficient clearance for the system at all times. There are 6 anchor point clearance requirements, which include 1. Anchor setback, the distance between the anchor point and the unguarded edge, 2. The work platform height, 3. The length of the lanyard, 4. Deceleration distance, 5. Height of the suspended worker, and 6. Safety factor. Keep note that in accordance with the applicable regulations, the maximum permissible freefall distance for a worker's fall arrest system is 6 feet, or the freefall distance permitted by the system when proper equipment is used. Anchors have as many designs as you have applications, so it's critical to know what kind is appropriate and how it should be used. For example, if you're working on a high-rise made of steel beams, you'll need a completely different type of anchor than what you'd need for working on the typical wood-framed roof. Manufacturers will provide specific guidance on how their equipment is to be set up and used by qualified persons. Per the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, a qualified person is someone who is trained, certified, or possesses the appropriate experience to properly assess the suitability of the anchor point. Bottom line here, guys, if you're not trained and you don't know what you're doing, find somebody who is. As a worker, you can't just go pick a random spot to tie off to and expect it to be safe. It is essential that you are trained to identify, set up, and use anchor points correctly. Please remember that this video is not designed to be a replacement for training in fall protection, and you should receive sufficient training before using fall protection equipment per ANSI standards. Even if you have routinely used fall protection in the workplace, you may have never used a certified anchor. Certified anchors are specially engineered anchors that are only required when a suitable non-certified anchor can't be found on the job site, meaning that non-certified anchors, which are actually the most common, are also preferred by fall protection standards. This is because affordable, easy to employ, off-the-shelf solutions make safety practices more accessible, which makes it more likely that workers will stay safe, provided they have proper training. We're going to talk about the most popular non-certified anchor styles in this video, such as those that are on the table in front of me, which represent some of the most popular anchors with our customers. A solid anchor really starts with a solid structure. And you might think that the structure you attach your fall protection system to would only need to be strong enough to hold your weight, probably between 130, 310 pounds, right? Maybe add some buffer for your tools. Well, that's wrong. Because of the momentum created when you fall, the force you're putting on the anchor will be far greater than just your weight. Just like shock loads impact working load limits for rigging, when your body is in free fall, and especially if you are swinging, a lot more strain is put on the anchor. You not only need something sturdy, called structurally adequate in safety terminology, to tie off to, you need something so strong that it could hold the weight of a pickup truck for every worker who uses that structure. So picture an F-150 hanging off of your anchor point and multiply that by how many workers are using that anchor point. That's the type of strength that you need. So to that end, let's talk about some examples of dangerous anchor points that people commonly mistake for adequate anchorage points. This would include unistruts, EMTs, rigid conduits, Schedule 40 pipes, handrails, sprinkler lines, air lines, and more. Never use any of these to tie off to. Something definitely is not better than nothing. So once you've selected proper sturdy anchorage, the next step is really to choose the anchor. And there's a lot to choose from. So let's talk about the different types, and we're going to start with permanent anchors. A fixed or permanent fall protection anchor typically refers to an anchor point that is permanently installed and cannot be moved or adjusted easily. These are often attached to structural elements of a building or structures such as large beams or structural columns. They provide a reliable and stable attachment point for fall protection systems like harnesses and lanyards and are typically welded, bolted, or nailed into place. In front of me are a few examples of fixed anchors. So this, for example, is a post anchor. A post anchor is a permanent anchor that can be used by itself or in series with multiple other post anchors to create a horizontal system. So again, standalone product, or you can have multiples of these on a rooftop connected to make a horizontal system. Since they're intended to be used outside for a long period of time, they have a thick, heavy galvanized finish on them. Now, common heights are usually 12 or 18 inches. Frankly, we sell a lot more of the 12-inch variety. Now, something to note about this anchor is that it's big. It's actually really beefy. So the base plate is 3/8 of an inch thick. It weighs nearly 40 pounds. And again, it has a heavy galvanized finish on it for outdoor use. It's made for permanent installation onto wood, concrete, and other steel structures. It does not include fasteners, but the user's manual will outline which ones to use. The worker weight capacity is 310 pounds and is compliant with relevant ANSI and OSHA standards. Another anchor on the table here is this Faltech D-ring anchor, which is the 7414, and this is the bolt-on version. So technically you would consider this a temporary anchor, but they do also make it in a weldable version. So really you could kind of have either or with this type of anchor. It has a rugged alloy steel construction and can be used with steel, wood, or concrete. Again, it doesn't come with fasteners, but the user's manual will dictate which type to use. Now, roof anchors come in both permanent and temporary types. So a hinged and reusable roof anchor, such as this Palmer Safety A00150, is the most common type that we sell. They're really quick and easy to install, and you can move them from one job to the next. You can see the way it's made that this is really a D-ring in the middle of two steel flaps, each with 16 holes that are made to attach to a wooden beam by means of nails being inserted into those holes. The nails are not included, but the instruction manual will tell you which kind to use. A more permanent version of an anchor like this would be this Faltech 7431. This is meant to be installed only one time and left under the ridge cap. And you can see it has D-rings on both ends, which allows you to work off either side of the roof. It's made from stainless steel, so it can be left in place indefinitely. Now, portable or temporary anchors attach to a specific structure for a given job or task. You can deploy the anchor, use it, and then remove it from service when you're done. And most are reusable, so you can get great mileage out of them. Here are some examples. Let's start with a beam wrap or a pass-through anchor, cross arm strap. These have a lot of different names, but really the way this works is you have a small D-ring that passes through a large D-ring and then goes around a sturdy or suitable anchorage point. So that's how a product like this works. And the cool thing is that if you get one that's too long, you can wrap it multiple times to shorten up the length to where you need it. Straps such as these are generally made from heavy-duty materials such as polyester or nylon, or sometimes a combination of the two. So you can see when you look at how these are made that you have really two pieces of webbing. So the bottom piece, the black piece, is wider. This is for abrasion. And then you have the yellow piece on top, which is for strength. Again, they work together because they're sewn together, but that dual layer system is what helps this last a long time in the field. And then your hardware is going to be alloy steel. You can also get these in a wire rope or cable version to where you have literally a piece of steel cable with D-rings on the ends. In a more abrasive environment, if you want to choke around a piece of steel, perhaps it's a little sharper, you should probably use the cable version. These work great on pipe or structures that are more round in shape. They're really economical, lightweight. You can use them over and over, and you'll see these featured even in horizontal lifeline systems. So what is a toggle anchor? Well, it's a type of anchor that's designed for temporary reusable installation into a steel structure. So this model in front of us, which is the Faltech 7408, looks and works similar to a syringe. So you grab and squeeze, which orients the toggle vertically or parallel to the main bolt. And then as you release, it goes back. So this goes up and through your steel structure, and then this toggle becomes your anchor point, and this hangs below, and then your connector or lanyard is going to connect into this. So similar to this cross arm strap, a toggle anchor can be used repeatedly. They're ideal for I or H beams. They can be mounted vertically or horizontally, a 1-inch maximum hole size, and then a 1 1/4 inch max depth into the beam. And the worker weight capacity is 425 pounds. Another really popular type of anchor that we'll talk about is a beam clamp. A lot of people in the industry will call them a beamer. And these are devices that can be clamped onto beams or other structural members to provide a temporary anchor point. And some designs allow for movement along the beam, providing flexibility for workers. So imagine you're walking on a beam and this is literally following you or trailing you. When using beam clamps and anchoring at your feet, make sure your lanyard is rated for extended falls. So earlier we talked about a 6-foot free fall kind of being the standard, but when you're anchored at your feet and your tie-off point is your dorsal D-ring down at your feet, you could be falling 5 or 6 feet depending upon your height before you even reach foot level. So you're doubling your free fall length. So the point is, if you're using a beam anchor at your feet, make sure you're using a proper lanyard or SRD, self-retracting device, that is rated for extended free fall. And an SRD, that's going to be a Class 2 SRL. One of the more popular beam anchors that we sell is the Faltech 7531, which is a 13-inch trailing beam anchor. So it has a ratcheting design with thumb latches that provide ease of adjustment. And it's dual ratcheting, so on both sides you can adjust in or out to fit the size of the beam. The alloy steel jaws are very strong, and there's nylon sliders inside those jaws to allow it to slide along the beam with ease for worker mobility. If you're required to use fall protection, you're already aware that you have a dangerous job. When using fall arrest anchors, compliance with safety regulations and guidelines is crucial to ensure the protection of workers at height. And really, we're talking about OSHA and ANSI. And here are key compliance and safety tips for using fall arrest anchors. Make sure you select appropriate anchors. Choose anchors that are suitable for the specific application, taking into account factors such as the type of work being performed, the structure of the work area, and the potential fall hazards that are present. Ensure proper installation. So follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully when installing fall arrest anchors. Ensure that anchors are securely attached to structural members capable of supporting the intended loads. Remember the image of an F-150 truck hanging off of the anchor. Always inspect your anchor prior to each use to verify its integrity. Comply with regulations. So familiarize yourself with relevant safety regulations and standards such as OSHA or ANSI. Provide training, and this is a really big one if you're an employer. You have to ensure that workers who will be using fall arrest anchors are properly trained in their use. Training should cover topics such as proper anchorage selection, inspection procedures, correct attachment of personal protective equipment, known as PPE, and emergency procedures. Be sure to inspect regularly. You should conduct regular inspections of fall arrest anchors to check for signs of damage, wear, or deterioration. Inspections should be carried out before each use and at regular intervals as specified by regulations for your industry and the manufacturer's guidelines. One of the aspects of a fall arrest plan or fall protection system that is often overlooked is rescue. So a lot of people focus on the ABCs, your anchorage, your body harness, and your connectors, and they might successfully get through a fall. But fall trauma is a real thing, so always ensure that all workers are familiar with these plans and know how to respond effectively in the case of an emergency. And that includes the response time of local emergency services. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like this video, share it with a friend or a colleague, and follow us to stay informed. And be sure to catch our next video in the ABC mini-series, which is going to be B for body harnesses. We have fall protection experts waiting in the wings to answer your questions. So if you have questions, let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.